First of all, thank you for all of your help in not only attending these Dharma talks week after week. I see a lot of you here over and over. This creates part of the three jewels. The last one is probably the most important one, is the community or the sangha. Quite often it's overlooked a little bit, or not much energy is put into community. So thank you for helping with that. This morning's Dharma talk is titled Enlightenment. There's a fancy word I don't use too often. But enlightenment, realization, seeing the truth, no longer being deluded by any damn thing, including your family, your mind, your brother, your sister, your wife, your husband, even your teacher, no longer confused by anything. It's distracting to see someone in a phone because it's something you see everywhere all the time. So to see that in the Zendo is a little disconcerting, or at least distracting. But is that confusing to me? Yeah, it is. No different than you are. A little difference, but it's very, very slight. It's a hair's breadth, that much separation. Enlightenment has no substance. You can't find that. You can't locate it. But the ego mind, the subjective mind, the self-centered mind is constantly looking for something. So if it's been looking for a degree in psychology and it gets that, and then it gets a perfect mate, then it gets that, or semi-perfect, or one that's kind of perfect but keeps getting worse, but you'll work with them, you'll train them. You know what I'm saying? Constant story after story after story, about. The big A word, not awareness, which is the other big A word that I emphasize, but about anything that shows up, then we want to know about that. And what do we do when we do that? We leave what is in front of us, which is the truth, for what we think about it, what we know about it, what somebody said about it, what I ought to say, what they shouldn't have said. And if they hadn't done that, then this wouldn't have, that wouldn't have. I don't think I need to go any further with that. You need to see this yourself. This is what this community is about, as far as I'm concerned. And for whatever time I have left here, that's what I'm emphasizing. I sometimes say, I don't care about how you feel. If I buy into your feelings, then you buy into your feelings. And then the next thing you know, you have no recourse but to believe a bunch of things that are lies, untrue, backed up by intense feelings, emotions. But if you can't see that as a Dharma gate, then you'll believe your stupid melodrama about your life. You'll be on stage. You won't be able to stay in the first row. You'll be sucked into that craziness of she said, he said, they said. He did this, then he did that. Then you know what he did next? The gall. He wasn't a Gaul, he was probably just an Englishman. You have to see it. And when I say see it, you're not going to see enlightenment. It has no substance. You can't see enlightenment. But what happens is when we go for our graduate degree, then that sets the tone for what? Materialism, spiritual materialism, scientific materialism, materialism, just getting something. We're always trying to get something. It is not necessarily necessary to stop that, or to go without food, or to not eat after 12 noon, or to be celibate, or to live up to any standard. As long as you're living to standards, then you just die, and you come back 100 years later and born again. Not you. You're not born. Consciousness is born. So consciousness, once it leaves the body, can be blended with anything. You could come back with, because of the dependent origination, you could come back 92% demon. When I say demon, I'm just using it as a negative word. There's no horns. There's really not even any red eyes. But it might show up that way so you'll know what it is. Because otherwise it'll just look like another blue-eyed Nordic. You have to see this yourself. This means that you have to see it with your awareness, not with your eyeballs, not with your nose, tongue, body, mind, anything, not anything, but just awareness. And if you're seeing and looking and appearing and receiving with your awareness, you will not know what you're aware of. Because if you know what you're aware of, this just re-emphasizes the separation, the otherness, the ego trip that most people are on. Enlightenment, awakening, has no substance. There's nothing there. This is why this has prompted some teachers to speak about this in different ways. His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, which I have quoted over the years dozens of times, if not more, when he was dying in 1981 in Chicago or near Chicago, he said to the Vajra Regent Ursel Tenzin, nothing happens. This does not mean things that aren't changing, getting green, turning blue, getting warmer, getting cooler, moving faster, moving slower. The relativity is not being denied, but what is being taught is that there is no occurrence. If you think there's an occurrence, then this is the subjectivity being just munching away on that vitamin pill, on that nutrition of otherness. Passion, aggression, ignorance, warfare, peace fear, warfare, peace fear. Those are not separate from each other. People say we have to have hope. No, you do not. You do not need hope. Hope is just a stand-in. It's a filler until fear comes along. And then the bed is all made. A fear walks into the house and hope goes out the window and say, I'll be back later. And says, yeah, I know, so I'll take a nap. Or else it runs around scaring itself. That is a duality. Duality. This is a duality. This one over here and that one over there. Or my voice in your ears. Dual. Those are not separate. You cannot hear my voice without ears. It takes two situations there. As long as there's an embodiment, as long as there's a physical manifestation of consciousness that has been downloaded into this human form. You're not limited to this human form. This consciousness can go anywhere. So please, not for my sake, but for your sake, I don't have a problem with this. I know where I'm going, and you don't. You don't know what's going to happen at death. I do. And how do I know? I'm looking at it. This is not separate from death. Life and death are not two. Do I have to break down and sob for you? I can. I do it often. You have to see it, not just buy into your stupid thoughts about everything. I know that feels safer, but it's a relative safety. See what this is. Never give up. Return, return, return. This is not a bunch of concepts. This is Sokuzan the simpleton. It's very simple. Just see it. I don't have any other thing to say. It's that simple. And it is that extremely difficult because the ego is wound up in knots from beginningless time. You think you've lived 32 years or 18 years or 75 years. Not true. Not true. It's not true. It's the dualistic mind, the ego mind, the subjective mind grasps passion, rejects aggression, and shuts down, distracts. Consciousness can do whatever the hell it wants. And if it's motivated by those three poisons, then it will continue to circle around and around and around the ego form, protecting the ego. It's like in the Old West, the wagons that go around it protect the settlers. It's that obvious and that obscure. See what this is. See what it is. Smell, taste, touch, hear, think. Very direct. Enlightenment has no substance. It isn't something else. Enlightenment is a relative word so that we in the relative realm that are attached to right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, good feelings, bad feelings, passion, aggression, ignorance, so that we can see that it's not separate from everything else. But you have to see everything else all at once in order to see that is awakening. Awakening is seeing no separation. If you need concepts about it, you don't see anything else but this. And you know this is unreal. Relatively real, yes, up and down, back and forth, life and death, pain and pleasure. But it's unreal. Ultimately, it is unreal. It has there's nothing there. Because consciousness has finally, after all these decades, all these centuries in this being that you are, has finally sees what this is and is not tempted by anything, not afraid of anything, not afraid of death, not afraid of life, not afraid of anything, because nothing can threaten what this is, because it is not separate from anything else. It is consciousness only. And it's not just your consciousness or my consciousness. It's consciousness only. Only. That's what the only. There isn't anything else. And that's a relative way of describing something that is completely impossible to describe. As I said to Unyo this morning, I said several things, but I'm only going to repeat one of them. I said, if you realize, after I'm gone, you realize what this is, you would just burst into laughter at what a fool you've been. All the war, all through your life, all the fighting, anxiety, the difficulty, realize it. If you realize it, there's no conclusion. If there's a conclusion, it is not fruition. That's back a ways. There's ground, which is suffering, and the path, which is train the mind, awareness, the three jewels that will support your path, your practice. But realization is not a conclusion. There's nothing left to conclude anything. And because you're still in a human form, you will see this. There won't be a conclusion. It's like everything is a punchline. It used to be called a cosmic joke. But that's a little bit too conceptual. Then we start to talk about, well, what makes it cosmic? And I can see the humor in it, but we start to chat about it, write books about it. Don't do it. Liberate yourself by looking at your chains. Look at your confusion. Look at the crap that arises in your mind that seduces you into pushing, aggression, pulling, or adjusting, or blaming this way, blaming. It doesn't make any difference where you blame. Just observe that. If you observe it and try to fix it, then you continue to spin. You might as well be jumping from the merry-go-round to the teeter-totter, or from the teeter-totter to the tilt-a-whirl, or from the tilt-a-whirl to suddenly you find yourself in the Coney Island of the mind. You do it with awareness, and you do it without even leaving your house. You don't have to go on a long journey to India, or to Portugal, or to Tanambogo Gabutu, which is an island in the Pacific. You might want to go there one of these days, if there's anything left of it. No substance. So therefore, if you think you've found something, you haven't. If you think you've not found something, you haven't. If you any thoughts you have about anything are missing the point. What is the point? Just this, as it is. The name of the evening meditation at 6 o'clock. As it is. It's just this. Every time you sit down, this is what Dogen was trying to point out. in the 13th century. This is the Buddha. This is Buddha, not this old man. This is just an old man coming apart every day. Doesn't matter. See what this is yourself. Get your body and mind, the whole complex to the wall, and observe, 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 observe. And when you get worn out, then go take a nap, but then come back and observe some more. That's a nice painting, Greg. Who is that? You must have gone to the bathroom. Give me some questions. You have them? Don't hesitate.
Wondervine, does consciousness see substance through this body-mind?
The way I understand what I understand you're asking about, I would say yes. So we see this is substance. I'm thinking about having some water. That's just a thought about water, and the water itself are separated, but they're really not separate. Fundamentally not separate. Different frequency. Different. The illusion of past and future is here. And in thoughts, there's no past or future. And if there is, that's an illusion too. More?
Wondervine, does consciousness see substance in thoughts?
Well, we're getting kind of technical, it's kind of a bunch of constructs that go into there. I would say probably. Well,
Okay.
Yoke bowing, does consciousness have substance?
the word what the word consciousness is pointing to, as I see it, no, there's nothing there. Substance is a relative term that can be taken lots of directions. There's substance here. I can pound on it. I can make a noise. But the incense smoke is also substance. I can smell it with one of my senses, but I cannot contact with this sense. You see the contrast there? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, that goes on and on and on. It gets more and more rarefied until there isn't anything at all. But that doesn't mean there isn't consciousness. Consciousness has no form. So therefore, it's looking around for anything it can find. It finds this, it actually creates this. This is consciousness. This is a rising in consciousness. Consciousness, you can't locate it because it has no location. If you wanted to talk about it all, you'd have to say it's everywhere or it's nowhere. Well,
Bowing, what looks like substance in our thoughts?
we believe them. We have a thought about something, and then we double up. You could just receive a thought and do nothing with it, which is what is being recommended in Shikantaza. Don't do anything with it. Sit still, thoughts arise, fine. You don't even say fine. You just don't do anything with it. Goes this way, it might change, it might knock on the door for a while trying to get your attention. You don't do anything with it. Don't accept it, don't reject it, don't ignore it, look away. So it only has a substance that you impute. Rising and coming and going are just, it has no, there's no Velcro there. Got a low battery here. We're low on technical help today. Where are all the technicians? Are they hiding in Vermont?
We're all many things.
We're all many things, that's true. We're understaffed. Thank you. Further? Anyone else? Anyone else on Zoom? There's a lot of room for questions here. I've just made even the talk title itself, you could certainly question that, couldn't you? Round path and fruition, suffering and the path, and then the realization is enlightenment or realization or some other fancy word, possibly samadhi, anuttara samyak sambodhi. There's the fancy, no farther, can't go any farther than that. That's what that Sanskrit is saying, basically. Anuttara, no, not farther, nothing farther. Samyak, completely this. Sambodhi, completely incomparable enlightenment. Sambodhi, bodhi, enlightenment. Bodhidharma, enlightened truth. Quite a nice name for that guy.
Yokudo.
Go ahead, Yokodo. I'll get back to you. Yes, go ahead, Yokodo.
If enlightenment, if this is so simple, as you say, and it's just this, why is it so rare, Bowie?
So it's not rare and then it's not there. Everyone has Buddha nature. Everyone is completely awake all the time. But the challenge there, the difficulty there is the mind that has been downloaded into this body form century after century, lifetime after lifetime. And are there past lives? I don't know. I'm not interested in past and future. I'm looking at this. If I look at any one of you, I see all your past lives. Do I see like when you were a hermit in India in the 13th century and climbed a mountain, fell off and died and then was reborn 15 minutes later or 1500 years later? No, I don't see that. But I just described it, didn't I? Is that real or unreal? There's no way to know that. This is what quite often researchers in this area like Stevenson would go back and try to interview people to see if this baby had this name and see if someone lived in this time. And I'm not saying that couldn't show up some, but it's not consistent enough to be worth anything. The best thing for you to do is to realize this. Realize this. Look at this incredible gift you have, being in a human form, this precious human form. Precious human life. Don't waste it. Don't miss your life by shutting out what is arising in your mind stream, no matter what it is. You shut anything out in your mind, you're going right back to another lifetime, possibly in Somalia, possibly in Nepal, somewhere else, not here. Got to get close to your question, or did I wander off into some other place? Yokodo.
Yokudo. I'm not sure. But I'm wondering if you don't ever realize that you're enlightened, or if you can't realize that because it would be a conclusion.
Yeah.
How do you not just keep going as if you're not enlightened?
The keep goinger comes apart. The identity, the subjectivity just comes apart, collapses from being looked at so much and not believed, not disbelieved. This is important. It isn't like you disbelieve ego. Don't do that. Ego is an illusion and is unreal. You don't need to get rid of ego, but you see what it is. You see that it is unreal. It is vividly unreal in emptiness, yet there's still form. To quote my teacher, Chogyam Trungpa. More?
Oh, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Yes.
Sokuzan, earlier I think you said that there was a hair's breadth difference between you being confused by people on their cell phones and the
Yes.
confusion. What is the difference?
It's just a hair's breadth. Not much. So I don't try to stop my emotions. If I see that, pardon me, I almost said that bad word that starts with an F, freedom. I get irritated by it because it just triggers that. So, but I'm not trying to stop that. I'm not trying to be this wonderful person who never has anger and never has irritation, but it can't find a self. So it gets triggered by dependent origination. Stop fighting your mind. Stop fighting the stuff that you're feeling. Don't fight anything anymore. Be genuine. It might take a few explosions as you see happening here. Don't fight with anything. And nothing is separate. There's nothing to correct. Nothing is wrong with anything anywhere. Everything is, as they said in the Dzogchen tradition, Longchenpo being one of those gentlemen, everything is perfect. This is perfect. This is the great perfection. But you have to see it. If you don't, then, this needs adjusting. I need to push on that, push on this. I can't be thinking that. Everything is welcome. All the negativity is welcome. So when I say hair's breadth, I'm saying it just clicks. I see it, and I'm fine with the negative feelings. You're not. See the difference? It's a hair's breadth. If it's not much. It's just that you get pissed off and I don't. But it's the same emotion for you as it is for me. It's just what you do with it. You abandon what you're feeling for something about it. Like, I shouldn't feel that way. That's wrong. I can't be doing that. I can't say that. I can't say. So we try to stop the outflows rather than go back. The outflow of anger, pointing a finger, yelling, arguing with someone. More? Come and get me. You can risk pissing me off, of course.
I don't have another question coming up yet.
That's fine. Thank you, sir.
Bowing. Question from Josh on YouTube. Josh Bowing, what does it mean to be genuine? Bowing.
See how much you lie to yourself to start with. See how much you're, Josh, see when you're shaving, or maybe you don't shave, brushing your teeth, look in the mirror and see how much you're bullshitting yourself about everything. Constantly reifying negative thoughts about everything in order to substantiate, reify, use that word again, and build or protect an imaginary self. You are not a separate being. Your body is separated. Your fingers are separated. This is the one I often use because it's kind of an obvious, simple-minded example. This finger, and then this finger, and this finger, and this finger, and this thumb are all separate. They all look a little bit different than each other. And they're separated, but they're fundamentally not separate. It's a hand. It's a hand. You can't take this separate finger in the other room. If you do, it's not going to be comfortable. So it's just a simple idea, but you can, the same thing with thoughts, emotions, feelings, memories. They hang together because of the hand. They hang together because of the body-mind complex that is bringing that together. But when this dies, all that goes. There's no way to trace it. It is too complicated. Right now, your body is protected. Your body is protecting you from consciousness that is wayward and looking for a host. Train your mind. Don't go into the intermediate state, or don't go back into the elements without seeing who this is, or at least having the intention. Even the intention to see this, who this is, even if you don't realize in this time, that intention never stops. The path to liberation does not stop if you don't give up on it. If you turn around, then that turnaround is going to show up in the next life. Am I threatening you with something? No, I'm probably wrong. Speculation based on having looked at the nature of consciousness for 50 or 60 years. It's been my main focus, if you want to call it a focus. It's coming from there. It's not an opinion. It's from looking at it. When I say it's not an opinion, that's why I'm saying, I don't know, maybe I've got it all wrong. Maybe we should talk to Jordan Peterson. He's got everything all figured out. I'm always making fun of him, not because he's silly or stupid or saying, no, he's brilliant. He's his own worst brilliant enemy because he thinks he's right about stuff. And do I seem like I think I'm right? That's a rhetorical question, therefore you have to respond. That's not any funny anymore, is it? Are you smirking at me? Okay.
Kayun bowing.
Yes, Kayun.
Until we see what this is, should we refrain from outflows bowing?
So thank you for the question. And the outflow would be, you see what's going on between you and your friend or your enemy or your cohort, whatever, and then they do something, trigger something, and you feel angry, but you're going to just douse it, which would mean Not going to say anything because you're trying to control your outflows. And what I'm saying is be aware of the outflow without engaging the vocal cord. So when I'm saying allowing, it's not actually that word. It's the other way word, awareness. Be aware of the energy. Be brave enough to have that negative energy come right up to the edge of the vocal cords, but don't open your mouth. Come right up to the edge of your clenched fist, but don't point your finger. So feel the energy. You can do that by practicing shikantaza so that you get more and more acquainted with how your emotions work, how they're triggered. Study the 12 links in the chain of existence. Study it, and see how something is started through ignorance and then ends in death. It's not negative. It's not pessimistic. It's just, if you look at it, you can see, well, you can just about identify with every stage in there in some way. Some of them are a little bit more difficult, especially the ones just before birth. Those are a little bit more. Becoming is a difficult one to grasp conceptually. But somebody understood it somewhere who was brave enough to come in and say, it looks like it's this one. It looks like this is what happens there. And I'm sure if we went back, maybe with the help of Chisho or someone else, and actually went through the Sanskrit words for that, we might go into each one of those words. It takes a lot of study to understand the conceptual elaboration that is happening there, that someone comes in and goes this way instead of that way, because this seems to suit that particular thinking process that is tied into consciousness, which is trying to understand what consciousness is. I know you're following me. I'm not going anywhere, so I'm very easy to follow. More? Painted cloud?
Bowing. So this is another example of a hair's breadth deviation.
Yes. It's just the hair's breadth is, actually there's no separation, but the hair's breadth gives you an idea that it's not going to take much as long as you're looking in the right place, or you're receiving. Looking is an active form of talking about it. As long as you're receiving, not approving, no stamp of approval on anything, not rejecting, no pushing away, no stopping, no closing the gate, and no ignorance or turning away, distracting yourself into what might be easier to look at than the feeling of not knowing what the hell this is. The not knowing is what starves ego. Ego will start to feel hungry for some kind of support and will look for something to console her or him or them. Some kind of consolation to, well, it's going to be okay because there's always impermanence. We all kinds of things that can come up. And even if we do that, then it's the awareness that we're doing that, not stopping it. That's why it's so difficult. The path of transcendence is impossible to attain relatively. It has to be done ultimately. And what is that? Returning to your true nature. You can do it. You're only trapped in this realm for a while. And you're going to go back and forth and be locked up by your own thought patterns over and over and over again until you see what this is and liberate yourself. And then you can see how heartbreaking it is to watch so many people torture themselves over really nothing. They haven't lost anything. They haven't gained anything. Nothing has occurred. Nothing happens. Nothing happens. At the same time, everything is obviously happening. You can see it. Well, of course, things are happening. Well, no, they're not.
Kayan bowing. So the other day when you were talking about the 3 C's, somebody in the Zendo had asked about silence. And I think you had said that being genuine looks like silence. So when we feel the energy of the aversion, say, in conversation with a friend, and it gets right to the cliff's edge of our vocal cords, and we can maybe even hear what our response would be, but don't outflow in that way. Is that an example of silence as being genuine, bowing?
That's very well delineated. So you made it just about impossible to respond to with anything other than silence.
Okay.
But if you want to take what it is you want to know and ask me that rather than try to catch me in some kind of existential trap, you're not going to catch me. You can't find me. I don't have a location. I'm already gone. I don't know where I went, but I'm already gone. Go ahead, please.
Just painting clouds over here.
Yeah, I noticed.
Kayun bowing. If I feel that intensity and don't do anything with it, is that being genuine? Bowing.
I would say it is if you're not concluding that, if that's not happening and you're coming and you're wrapping that up in some kind of Christmas wrapping, genuine, I finally got it, genuine. So without the conclusion, I think there's some path quality there. It's still path, it's not fruition. But when Trungpa Rinpoche says be genuine, which is where I'm getting that from, my teacher said that, he's basically saying my understanding of it. If we were to talk to him, you might say, well, no, it's not exactly that. But the way it looks to me and the way it's meant something to me is to be the crap that you're trying to get rid of. Not to be that and condemn yourself with it or sink down into it and just be depressed and take a Wellbutrin or something, although you might have to do that. I know what your karma's about. I'm not against Prozac or any of the other more up-to-date or modern ideas of that. That's, may need to do that. All that chemistry stuff I don't know about. But it's the intention that is so powerful. As I've said, have the intention to see the truth no matter what. So that if you do pass without realizing, then when you pass, the intention will take over everything. I don't guarantee that. I can't guarantee it. That would be silly. That would be disrespectful of me towards your karma to guarantee anything. I don't know what it's like to be you, but I certainly know what it's like to be be trapped in this body-mind complex for decades and decades and decades. Is that trapped anymore? It's both trapped and not trapped. It's trapped just enough to respond to your question, but not so trapped that I'm going to lie to you about anything.
Kayun bowing. I guess I'm feeling trapped because I want to see the difference between not stopping an outflow and not just giving myself free rein to be an asshole because I feel that way. Okay,
then that area right there is what happens is we think there's a right and a wrong. And so we there's still some kind of a controlling mechanism that's wanting to make sure I can be genuine, but not be a shit. And so that area right there needs to be looked at. There's still path. Continue to look at that. I'm not saying you take it to the cushion and contemplate it there. Unless if it shows up, then it's like any other thought that's showing up. Just watch it come and go, come and go. But there will be no conclusion there. It's like you're on the train and you're going, but you're not at the station. Don't get off that train. Stay on the train. Stay in the intention to see that those look like polarities that you have to get off and join one or the other, but don't do it. The intention to be genuine is to stay right on that and be confused, be irritated, be swamped by that emotion. And if you're sitting in front of a person that is stirring up something like that, receive everything that's there, not just their words or their finger shaking or their dismay about what you're doing, that you aren't aligning with what they think you should do, and all of those things. You're not understanding, and all the other complaints that come from the so-called other. Then just receive those as best you can. But when you receive that, also receive everything else that's coming at you through all the sense fields, including how your butt feels in the chair, how your hand feels on the tabletop, the sound of the traffic. I'm not saying do it as a goal setting. I'm saying just flash on it. Flash on the fragrance in the room, or the odor, or the how much moisture is in the air. All of those things are coming at you at the same time, are available to you at the same time, the thought patterns. Don't get rid of the thought patterns, but bring in other aspects of the body-mind complex that are also on receive. You're always, if I say to you, you smell smoke, you don't have to suddenly change gears and stop thinking to go and say, let's see now, let me hook up my nostrils and all that other stuff that's hooked to that and see if there's any smoke in the room. You immediately could say, no, I don't. Do you? And then, because then you would be curious if someone else smelled smoke and you didn't. So then that's the way consciousness seems to work. There's a incredibly immediate CCC, communication, cooperation, collaboration, when it comes around something that's dangerous. We immediately drop all of our personal crap and go right to what needs to be looked at. Have you noticed? That's how it works. So stay on the train, just continue to look at the area between those until that differentiation starts to come together and you realize that those are not two different things. When you do, then spontaneous, then choiceless, then you live your life absolutely straightforwardly all the time, even though people might be accusing you of all kinds of crap. So it's not that you don't hear it, receive it, smell it, taste it, hear it, feel it. It's just that you don't agree. This is important. You don't disagree and you don't ignore it. And this is where liberation starts to show up on your doorstep. Whether you'll open the door and go out and receive it or not, don't know about that. That's your bailiwick. Receive, receive, receive. Practice receiving on the wall so that when in the middle of your Bodhi mandala, your enlightenment circle that you sit in 24/7, when that shows up, you don't panic, get freaked out and run away, that you actually allow it to show up, because to ego, it feels like death. And it can be extremely scary and threatening. It can be terrifying. I was lucky I didn't have any terrifying things. They're all very easy for me. I just kind of opened up and thought, well, maybe if I do this, then I can maybe teach people stuff. So I'm kind of a dummy. Further questions?
Yoka bowing. Ross bowing. Is everything that appears trying to teach this my mind stream? Question mark bowing.
Yes, if you're a student, everything is teaching. Everything is teaching you all the time, everywhere. Every word, everyone's face, every fragrance, everything is saying to you, not separate, not separate. It's saying, the fancy word for that is everything is the Buddha. Everything is teaching, preaching the Dharma. But you have to receive it. Every voice, every intonation, every negative look on someone's face is not separate, not separate. It might say it a lot more than that. So yes, Ross, receive, be a student from now on.
Yoka bowing. Another question from YouTube from Eric. Eric bowing. Can it be helpful for all beings if we can receive the anger or negative energies arising with us and transmute them into compassionate action outflows?
I don't teach that way, and it sounds it's too complicated. People teach this way, and I would say, do you have a degree in chemistry or something? Not you, but is your job something where you have to think a lot and show off? He's not responding.
Eric Antaya.
Eric, straighten up. I didn't know it was you. Eric, go and make some more of those paper things that you made, that you gifted me with. Make 50 of them, all different. Make some more of those. But what you said is relatively accurate. You could actually write a pamphlet on it and people would read and think, whoa, that's the guy's kind of on it there. But you don't need to do that. Sit down, hold still, look at the wall, and watch the way you continue to grasp, reject, and shut down without interfering with that. Do not improve. Don't improve, but get to the wall and notice the lack of improvement.
Yoka bowing.
Is he still there?
No, but Ross said, thank you, bowing. And I have a question from Josh. Again, Josh bowing, how do I develop compassion that does not care about results?
So you look at the lack of compassion or lack of caring for others and the self-centeredness that you're constantly doing everything for me, 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 me. So you have to look at that quite a long time before compassion will arise without pretense. The kind of compassion that quite often is talked about is pretentious compassion. People want to appear compassionate. They want to act compassionately. And it's not that we couldn't do some of that. I might even say, anybody might say you should treat people with respect and be kind to people if you can, but it's not like performance art. You don't just get to act compassionately and then actually use that to cover up your own negativity because you're more interested in the ego appearing like a passionate person so that people will say, you know, he's so kind. He just never puts himself before others. Bullshit. Now, I can say that. How do I know? Many years of doing that myself. I'm not glaring at you. I'm glaring at the person there. Josh. Further questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I was struck by when we did the meditation earlier, the instructions. I think it was from your book on meditation.
Okay.
It was mentioned stillness as
Yes.
like a key to the meditative practice. I found that interesting, just like thinking about the physical body being still and not relating to the mind. Could you talk about like the relationship between stillness and enlightenment as a way of, I don't know.
Yeah, I can put it very simply. If you see what this is, which is just enlightenment, if you no longer at war with anything, no longer at peace with anything, no longer have any position on anything because there isn't anyone to have a position, then that's both stillness and movement at the same time. At the same time. It's called non-dual. Advaita is the fancy Sanskrit word. Dvaita is divided. Is negative, not two. It has to be described negatively, because if we do it positively, then that just makes us feel like Norman Vincent Peale. Norman Vincent Positive, The Power of Positive Thinking. Has everybody read that? No. Don't read it. Just read the title. Read the title of the book. That's enough. You don't need to read any more. More?
So it's not so much about stillness. This recognizing stillness is just one aspect of.
Well, a little bit. It's basically about just being aware of whatever's arising in the mind without grasping passion, without rejecting aggression, and without shutting down those. And what does that feel like? It feels like you can't control it. And that's the ego. That's the way to get close to the ego, is see what the ego's up to and then don't interfere. Because the ego doesn't realize that it's unreal, because it's aligned with a consciousness that is balled up into a hope and fear, hope for something better, fear of something worse. And that fist will be tightened in your heart and in your mind until you see it. You have to see the fist. And the only way to get close to the fist, that ego in the consciousness, is to look at its productions, which are what? I like it, I don't like it, it's good, it's bad, it shouldn't be, it should be, they shouldn't be happening, he shouldn't be saying that. They said this, did this, why does that make me feel so terrible? Why can't I just say, what do I care? I mean, I don't need them to agree with me or be. So we chatter at ourselves about it, and what that does is that the ego just eats that up because it loves to be talked to. Shut up. And how do you do that? Sit still, watch what moves, until the consciousness itself becomes so, to use a relative, so powerful and so prioritized that no matter what arises in consciousness, it is not grasped at being real or rejected as being unreal, or what's the other one? Grasping, rejecting, what's the other one?
Grasping.
Oh, I certainly am.
Grasping.
So grasping is passion.
Oh, yeah.
Rejecting is aggression. What's the other one? Huh?
It's not coming to mind.
Ignoring. Yeah, and it's harder to see that one because the very nature of ignoring is you don't see anything. But the nature of passion is doing something, meddling around, fooling, pushing, pulling, blaming, taking a stance on anything. Don't choose anything. You'll be amazed how much easier life is if you don't pick and choose. Don't do anything with anything that arises. You'll still get fed. You get hungry, you will go eat. Anybody feeding you?
From time to time.
Okay. Probably be all right then. Further questions? Yes.
Sokuzan, it sounds like negativity can show up and have nothing to do with the three poisons. Is that right? Like if negativity or anger shows up for you, it's distinct from the three poisons?
No, it's just the three poisons. Well, I'm still here, have ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. I'm here. So I'm a person, you're a person. We're people, we're just here. But I'm looking at something and that you are covering up. And what I'm not just saying eyes, I'm saying everything. I'm receiving this. And you're covering that up. So that's what I'm suggesting, asking you to do as a student, which you are a student, is to see what it is, realize it. It will take a while. There might be a lot of very dark negativity that you have to continue to look at, move into, and look at and move into. As Trungpa Rinpoche said, march directly into disappointment. The path to awakening is one disappointment after the other for ego until the final disappointment, which is awakening itself, which is not exactly disappointing. It's disappointing initially because the ego part of the consciousness that is unreal realizes it's about to be just found out. So that's disappointing. It doesn't get to be included in enlightenment. It's very sad. Poor thing.
Goodbye. How is it that you're saying you're here, but then you also say there's no one here? Why?
I'm here, consciousness is here. This is moving. You're here, I'm here, we're all here. Present, you could say. And so, but there's no central identity happening here. And there's no central identity happening there, but you don't see that. You keep creating an identity out of being afraid of the unknown and being magnetized by your hopes for something better, the hope that you'll be free of suffering. Good question. Keep going. Don't stop. Let's take it apart.
Goodbye. It seems like you're saying that you can both be localized in this body mind and
Yes.
be
The consciousness
only.
once consciousness is liberated from the belief in a separate self, that there's somebody here who's better than them or worse than them or has some kind of differentiation based on relative values. And if you think you make choices about anything. I'm not saying that you don't make this choice from here to do that and put that, of course, very simple. We do that. But if you are in that area where you're doing that, then the consciousness is localized in the body, in the hands, or in the speech, or in the mind, in the what we call the mind, or the brain, or whatever you want to say it. But if you're liberated, the consciousness has no location. You no longer are trapped in a body. You're liberated. It doesn't making. Sure, it makes a difference if I die today or tomorrow. I won't see your physical form anymore. But I'm not going anywhere. Nor are you. There isn't anywhere. As long as you identify with the body mind, you think you are a body mind, then you're going somewhere, including to the bottom of the ocean, like in your situation that we looked into years ago. You're going there. Liberate yourself. And if you liberate yourself, then it's not that you won't have pain. There's consciousness is still connected with a form. I have a bunch of it happening. And all it is, it functions as a reminder to let me know that not time for me to go yet. Hurts. But you have it. Everyone has some kind of pain going on. So the location is an illusion, just like the location at past or future is an illusion. You can actually be reborn in the past. Doesn't look like it, does it? And it never will look like it because it's a relative construct. More? Good question. Any further questions, sir?
Yoka bowing. Josh has another question. Josh Bowing, is there a difference between knowing and taking a position on something? Bowing.
Well, relative knowing is probably going to be taking a position on something. You go out and you look at your car and one of the tires is flat, there's a nail in the tire or something, or the rim is leaking. So you take a position, you go and get it fixed. When it starts to happen in the mind stream, it's less, the frequency there and the vibration in there is more rarefied. Thoughts are not flat tires. Thoughts about flat tires are not necessarily flat thoughts. Follow me? Or does Josh, do you follow me there? If you do, we're in trouble. So it's just, it's so convincing to the self-centeredness that we can actually think about something and be accurate, or think about something and be not accurate, or think about something and have it not make any difference at all, to have any position on anything. So we have the position, but we're, as it says in the Zen, one of the old Zen teachings, I don't know if you maybe might remember who it is, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Nothing happens. It's just an ancient way of saying the same thing. Nothing actually happens. Go ahead.
Josh answered, I don't know.
Oh, I like that.
And Ian Ross both, and Eric also said thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for your generosity. Is there a final one before we close that someone is chomping at the bit? Or yes, go ahead.
Do you dream, Sokuzan?
Yeah, I had a really good dream last night.
So are you aware in your dreams?
Occasionally, usually I know we had, as you know, we had a retreat here a little while ago where we had just the monks got together for 4 days and had a dream practice. And that's something that Chazan in the past, was it 4 years ago? 5 years ago, conducted another retreat for people to study their dreams using lucid dreams and using out-of-body things. That's something I've been interested in since I started having that show up in the early 60s. So lots of really great material out there, and there's a lot of material that kind of goes in circles. I'm not saying it's bad. Are you doing some lucid dreaming, Naveed?
Yes, I'm having some lucid dreaming.
What's that like for you?
I had many different experiences in lucid dreams, but the thing that I don't know what to do with them.
You don't have to do anything with them. Yeah, you don't have to do anything with them. I mean, there are people who tell you otherwise, but I'd say don't do anything. The most important thing I can tell you to do, and this is based on how this looks to me for being around for a long time, is sit in front of the wall while you're not dreaming, when you're awake, and see that this is a dream. This is the lucid dream, not the one you have at night. The one you have at night is extremely interesting and sometimes very scary. And it can be, because it's like suddenly you have this kind of ability to slightly move things around a little bit in the dreamscape, and yet you realize you're in a dream at the same time. So therefore, and you realize if you think of a purple duck, suddenly it appears. So this is where the whole reality of the situation becomes. You start to realize the value of lucid dreaming and dreaming itself. If you look at your dreams or write them down or keep track of them and reflect on them, is to see that it's incredibly realistic while it's there. And then when we look back on it, it's like, what was even the lucid dream is. I think there's been a lot of, and I haven't read anything on the topic, but I've read a few things on it. Even when they try to have somebody dream something, we did some of that where you had a dream where we decided to try to move an object. That's been 5-6 years ago, hasn't it? And how did that go? We didn't move the object, did we? But it felt like something was happening. Wasn't it your experience? I mean, something was real and seemed real at the time in the lucid dream. Isn't that correct? And did you have a dream that you actually moved something or tipped it over? You didn't. Well, that must have been disappointing. So did you have a question other than the one you asked of what should you do with it?
David Bowing. I was wondering, shouldn't be the case to be always aware in your dreams if you're enlightened?
No, any position on anything. Yeah. Well, what am I saying? I'm not even enlightened, so how can I comment on it? But I guess I just gave a talk on that, though, didn't I? So no position, even the position of enlightenment. I don't take that position. I don't have a position. That's my position. You could say, well, that's just, he says he's not enlightened, or says that enlightenment is a position, or, you can get into some kind of a disagreement about all of these conceptual ideas. We are so hooked onto, fastened to concepts about it rather than the actual wall we're looking at, the actual smell in our nose, the taste in our mouth, the color in front of us. Find this out, realize, awaken. The sample dream is the one you have at night. It shows you what a dream is, including a lucid dream. It's still a dream. It's just that part of the consciousness is showing up as some kind of a central personhood there that sees that it is unreal. It sees that it has a reality that is extremely exciting and even scary, because we're realizing it's a dream and it's insubstantial. Things come apart. There's a past and a future come apart. When you pass away, which I hope will be many, many years from now, so you can practice a long time, then that whole area, then we actually pass into the dreamscape again, except you don't have an astral body to tag along with you, to connect you through your physical form, your physical form. But yeah, keep doing that. If you have an interest, you can send him that. Yeah. Jason will just shook his head and is going to send you some material on that, working with that he's practiced and taught about. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us from so far away. It just seems like you're across the room somewhere. Another illusion. Are we? This would have been astonishing in the 18th century for this to suddenly show up. Oh, by the way, I just invented Zoom and computers and everything. I just wanted to share it with you guys, but just for the sangha, nobody else. No political parties get to use this. We're very stingy. Yes.
Can I ask a question? I know it's the time.
Is it a really good one?
I hope so.
Okay, then I'll go with your hope.
Okay. So you often say nothing happens, and this is the path that we try to look at that. So my question is, during the relative life, we often say making memories. Turn up. Making memories. To me now, making memories is less appealing, even though I want to enjoy more for this lifetime with this experience. So I'm wondering, when we making good memories and enjoy or treasure the life we have with this experience, how can we be aware of not caught up in the maybe too much grasping? Bowing?
So the way you asked the question, and this is a very, this might not be the response you're looking for, but the way you asked the question, you're already doing it. The most important thing I can say to you is not to manipulate anything, make any response about what you should or shouldn't do about memories or enjoying your family, taking photographs, or thinking about your vacation last year and what you're going to do this year, if anything. Not about so much about that. Just let that be whatever it is. Let that be but the important thing for you to do, get to the wall, get to that stillness where you're just sitting symmetrical, you're just receiving whatever shows up, and train your mind to see, starting with your own thought forms and your emotions and your memories, when your body is very still, watch what moves without adding, watch what moves without subtracting, watch what moves without dividing. No passion, aggression, ignorance, if you can help it. And when you see that you can't do that, that is how the awareness, to use a relative description, gets stronger. And so that eventually the awareness is so powerful that it sees the unreality of everything. It sees that this is a complete dream. And that's why nothing happens. That's why enlightenment is without substance, because the substance we have here is all relative. We are, you could say, trapped, locked into a physical world that seems so real. That seems real. And so therefore we buy into that relativity. But if you realize what this is, you can still be in this illusion, but you're not deluded by it. You're not, nobody can dangle something out in front of you and magnetize you out of your Buddha nature into something else, into grasping or rejecting or shutting down. You can do that. Train your mind. See the truth yourself. No one can give you the truth. You have to see it yourself. But I can, like any other teacher, a true teacher who teaches out of what they're looking at, what they're seeing, what they're smelling, tasting, hearing, touching, feeling, thinking, they can point to it. Maybe if they point, I guess they can point. That's what I am endeavoring to do based on what I'm seeing. And I have no credentials, have no proof. And if you need proof, you're listening to the wrong guy.
Thank you. 谢谢巴云。
谢谢，不客气，不客气。我不知道，我不知道。I know nothing. I know nothing. I know nothing. So we can go ahead and do close out. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Hi, this is Chiezan, the prior at SokukoJi Buddhist Monastery. Sokuzan offers these talks without expecting anything in return. If you value these talks and would like them to continue, please visit our donate page at www.sokukoji.org. Thank you.